People who work at lingerie stores. What's your most awkward experience with a customer? Story 1. Back in college, I worked at this little boutique where most days were slow and uneventful until one customer made himself unforgettable. A man came in one afternoon, carefully picked out a delicate size 4 nightie, and asked me to wrap it up beautifully. He said it was for his anniversary. Sweet, right? I actually thought, wow, what a thoughtful husband. Fast forward 2 weeks, the same man strolls back in. But this time, he's not alone. He's with another woman, definitely not a size 4, and she's absolutely tearing into him. You never buy me nice things, blah blah blah, she rants, loud enough for the whole store. And then it hit me. The gift wasn't for her. We locked eyes, him realizing that I knew, me trying to keep my poker face behind the counter. The silence between us was so loud it practically screamed. Here's the thing. Don't bring your wife shopping at the same place where you buy gifts for your mistress. Trust me, the employees remember, and yes, they gossip. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. My friend used to work at Lingerie boutique, and one day she was helping a woman, middle-aged, a bit on the heavier side, get fitted for a bra. You know the usual routine, tape measure, small talk, polite laughter. As she wrapped the measuring tape around her, the woman chuckled and said, "Just be warned about my babies in there." My friend laughed too, assuming she meant her breasts, but then suddenly the shirt moved. Not shifted, ran. Something alive darted beneath the fabric. My friend screamed so loud it echoed through the entire store. The woman, completely calm, she reached into her bra like it was a pocket and pulled out, wait for it, 2 sugar gliders. Yes, sugar gliders. Tiny marsupials with big eyes and twitching noses, like if hamsters went through witness protection and got a glow-up. Apparently, she kept them nestled against her chest, calling them her babies. So yeah, moral of the story. When a customer at lingerie store says "my babies," maybe don't assume she's talking about her cup size. Story 3. I worked in a big southern department store in Virginia for 3 years, 2 of those as the head lingerie fitter. Trust me, I could write a book with the stories. But this one scarred me. An older couple came in one afternoon, smelling like cigarettes and cheap booze. The wife asked me to fit her for a bra. It had been 10 years since her last purchase. No problem, I thought. This was my job. We went into the fitting room, and she stripped down instantly. I measured her bust, gave her the size, and she lit up with excitement. While she stayed in the room, I stepped out to grab some bras. That's when I noticed her husband. He wasn't browsing, he was way too interested in one of the mannequins. Let's just say, I pretended not to notice and hurried back into the fitting room. The wife was still excited and asked if I'd measure her waist and hips too. I smiled, agreed, and started with the waist. She beamed at the number. Then I crouched down to measure her hips. And then boom, the smell. I froze, tape measure trembling in my hands as an odor hit me that I'll never forget. I measured as fast as possible, muttered the number, and shot back up so quickly I nearly fainted. I escaped the room, sanitized my hands within an inch of their life, and left her to her own devices. Meanwhile, her husband was still lurking by the mannequins. That was the day I realized, retail isn't just customer service. Sometimes it's surviving a horror show. Story 4. I never thought I'd completely fall apart inside a lingerie store. My wife had just gone through her 5th miscarriage. It was the worst yet. She had been suffering for days before the hospital finally intervened. When it was over, she sent me out to buy underwear. She had ruined all of hers. So I walked into store. This 6'5" bearded guy who looked more like a biker than a lingerie shopper. I stuck to the cotton section, trying to decode sizes, when a salesgirl approached. She smiled and asked if I needed help. I told her I was shopping for my wife. She nodded and, trying to be helpful, started guiding me toward the bold stuff. And that's when it all came crashing down. I hadn't cried once through any of the miscarriages. I always had to be the rock for my wife. But at that moment, surrounded by lace and strangers, I snapped, tears welled up, and before I knew it, I was sitting on the floor, sobbing harder than I ever had in my life. This giant, barrel-chested man collapsed in a puddle of his own tears in the middle of the store. The poor salesgirl panicked. Thinking she'd done something horribly wrong, she ran for her manager. That's when this kind woman came over, knelt down, and just hugged me. She held me until I could breathe again. Then she wiped my face, helped me up, and quietly asked the girl to grab a half-dozen pairs of soft, comfortable underwear. At the counter, I tried to hand her my card. She refused. "Go home to your wife," she said gently. I left the store that day carrying a bag of underwear, but more importantly, I carried the reminder that even in the most unexpected places, a stranger's kindness can hold you up when you can't stand on your own. Story 5. Working the fitting rooms at a retail store, you see things you can't unsee. One day, a woman shuffled up to me, looking like she'd had a very rough week. she carried 3 strapless bras and disappeared into a stall. Moments later, she dropped the bras at my desk, along with the thin cotton dress she'd been wearing. No bra underneath, just a view I never asked for. My coworker and I locked eyes, both silently screaming. When she came out, she handed back only 2 bras, but I knew. Oh, I knew. Her chest suddenly looked supported, lifted. Better than when she'd walked in. She'd smuggled one out under her dress, like we wouldn't notice. That was one of the please bleach my brain moments. But then, on another shift, I had one of the sweetest encounters. A tiny 3-year-old girl darted past the desk, her dad chasing behind. She ran right up to a rack of bras, pointed with all the excitement in the world, and shouted, "Daddy, look, it's a bra. You put them on your milkies. We should get one for Mom because she has milkies." The whole department burst out laughing. Retail really is a mix. One day you're dodging shoplifters, the next you're witnessing pure toddler innocence. Story 6. My mom and I used to work at Victoria's Secret in the mall. She was the bra specialist, and I was the cashier. Normal day, until I hear her voice crackle over the headset. I need a manager in fitting rooms. Now. Seconds later, my mom comes sprinting out, grabs me by the shoulders, shakes me, and blurts, "I can't do this." Here's what went down. An older gentleman had walked in and picked out not 1, but 2 of the tiniest lingerie robes we carried. Think doll-sized scraps of satin meant to slip over a bra and panties. He asked for 2 hangers and a fitting room. Strange, but fine. My mom set him up. A few minutes later, he buzzed for assistance. She went to help, thinking maybe he needed another size. Instead, the door swings open, and there he stood, wearing nothing but that teeny robe hanging loose. He looked her straight in the eye and asked, "So, how does it look?" My poor mom, horrified, stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Nice color." But it didn't end there. He buzzed again and again. Each time, door opens, robe dangling, way too much on display. Now you have to understand, my mom is the shyest person alive. By the 3rd round, she was nearly in tears, bolting out of the fitting rooms like it was on fire. And after all that, he didn't even buy anything. Story 7. When I worked at a lingerie store, I actually loved helping men shop. Most were husbands or boyfriends wandering in clueless, just looking for guidance. Easy, fun, even. But one day, a middle-aged man came in, nervous, shifting on his feet, not your usual lingerie customer. I smiled and asked, "Shopping for someone special today?" He looked me dead in the eye and said, "For myself." That answer rerouted my entire shift. For the next hour, I worked with him in a private fitting room. I measured, advised, and helped him pick out bras. As we talked, he opened up. He had a wife and kids, but this was his private side. Wearing bras made him feel more like himself, even if he had to keep it a secret. We picked out a few of his favorites, even found matching sets. When he was ready to leave, he gave me this almost pleading look. "If you see me in here with my family, please pretend you don't know me." It was awkward, sure, but mostly, I just felt sad for him. To carry such a big piece of yourself in silence, hidden even from the people closest to you, felt heavier than any bra I could have ever fitted him for. Story 8. I walked into a lingerie boutique just wanting to get measured for a new bra size. Normal errand, no big deal. Until I looked up and realized the employee walking toward me with the measuring tape was her. The girl who used to bully me in middle school. In my head, I'd always pictured this moment going differently. You know the fantasy. Years later, you bump into your bully, and you're thriving, confident, glowing. Instead, she wordlessly ushered me into a fitting room, wrapped the tape around me, and started adjusting and measuring in that very hands-on way bra fitters do. The silence, absolutely brutal. Every comeback I'd ever rehearsed just evaporated under those fluorescent lights. Finally, she stepped back, looked me dead in the eye, and said flatly, "You've been wearing the wrong bra size for years." And that was it. No catharsis, no epic revenge moment. Just me, half-dressed, being corrected by the same girl who made my life miserable at 13. Life has a cruel sense of humor. Story 9. I worked at a well-known lingerie boutique for 2 years, and my all-time favorite story comes from an 85-year-old woman who walked in one Christmas season. The store was packed, wall-to-wall with customers, when this tiny, adorable grandma waddled up to me and said she wanted to buy some bras. Easy enough, I thought. I set her up in a fitting room, and that's when she started telling me her life story. Loudly. She used to teach at the community college. She was 85, and she had nothing to hide. And she meant it. When I told her I needed to take a measurement, she undressed in about 3 seconds flat, arms out, completely confident. No shame whatsoever. So there I was, measuring an octogenarian while she talked at full volume for the entire store to hear. I brought her a few standard full-coverage bras, but nothing fit. I kept running in and out with more options, while customers gave me looks like, "What is happening in there?" Finally, after another failed try-on, she shouted at the top of her lungs, "What the hell's wrong with these?" I lost it, couldn't hold back. And after all that, the bra she finally fell in love with wasn't full coverage at all. Nope, it was our boldest option, the plunge bra. Maximum cleavage, removable inserts to push the girls together. So yes, my favorite Christmas retail memory is helping an 85-year-old grandma strut out of the store with the bra designed for bombshells. Story 10. It was a slow day at work, the kind where customers drift in, grab their bra, and leave without so much as a hello. But then she walked in. She wasn't looking for support, or comfort, or even style. No, she wanted a bra that fit her personality. For 20 minutes, I found myself in a full-blown therapy session where bras had identities. The neon lace, too loud. The beige t-shirt bra, way too stuck up. And apparently, all the push-up bras were rake bells with big egos. What she wanted was a flamboyant but not annoying best friend in bra form. So we stood there, basically matchmaking bras for brunch. And honestly, it was way more entertaining than my usual day. Just kidding. I don't work at a lingerie store. I just wanted this thread to take off. But if you're curious, my favorite bra is the shy one. You know, the one that's secretly sarcastic once you get to know her. Story 11. I work at a lingerie store that literally has its own reality show. Translation, we attract the kind of customers who want their 15 minutes of fame, and it shows. Our motto is, no bust, too big or too small. We fit them all. We carry everything from 30A to 50M, and business is always booming. But as filming for Season 2 got closer, the customer stories got wilder. Honestly, I could write a book. One of my favorites, a dominatrix walked in one afternoon with her boyfriend and girlfriend, both on leashes. She strutted through the racks while they crawled behind her, collars and all. That was their thing, apparently. But between the three of them and the poor 70-year-old Southern grandma shopping with her grandkids, let's just say she came back another day to finish her purchase. And then there was the man who came in looking for lingerie for his wife. Totally normal. We see husbands all the time. But when I suggested he bring her in for a fitting, he casually said, "Oh, she passed away 2 years ago." Turns out he had a mannequin at home that he dressed in her honor. And you know what? He was polite, respectful, and just seemed happy to be buying something special. I helped him pick out a beautiful corset and panties, and he left smiling. Working here is never boring. Some days it feels less like retail and more like front row seats to the most bizarre reality show on earth, except we're living it. Story 12. Working retail means you sign up for weird moments, but nothing prepared me for the day I had to help a very large, very flamboyant man out of a faux leather catsuit. He had wriggled his way into it for Halloween, but quickly realized he was not getting back out on his own. Cue me, tugging and peeling him out of the thing like a sausage casing, both of us laughing so hard we nearly cried. In the end, we gave up on the catsuit altogether. Instead, he strutted out with a pleather skirt, lace-up boots, and a prop whip. His final costume? Bold schoolgirl Catwoman. And honestly, he owned it. Story 13. I don't work in lingerie, but I do work in bridal. And because we measure women in their underwear, I've had my fair share of awkward moments. Most bridal parties show up in high spirits, sometimes tipsy, but one group decided to take it to the next level. They smuggled wine into the store. 2 hours later, they were absolutely plastered, giggling their way through the racks and loudly comparing their anatomy like it was open mic night. And then came the kicker. They decided underwear was optional. So there I was, tape measure in hand, stuck in a dressing room with drunk, underwear-free bridesmaids, talking like they were hosting a comedy show. That was the day I made a new rule for myself. I don't measure drunk people, and I definitely don't measure anyone without underwear. Story 14. I've worked at a well-known lingerie company for nearly a decade now, 6 of those years as a manager. At this point, nothing shocks me, nothing embarrasses me. Best part of the job? Helping trans women find the perfect fit. They just want to be treated like everyone else, and when they're met with kindness, they light up. Honestly, those moments make my day. Worst part? Perverts. The ones who come in just to make a scene. They want a reaction, so I give them none. Blank stare, polite, please leave, or security will handle it. Done. Funniest part, the teenage boys who swagger in, trying to be edgy by asking for a bra fitting. I whip out the measuring tape, measure them with a straight face, hand them a bra, and start leading them toward the fitting rooms. Most of them bolt before I can even finish my sentence. Grossest part, let's just say not everyone respects fitting room etiquette. Moms, if you let your preteens wander the mall alone, please teach them better. And grown women, if you're returning lingerie, at least wash it first. No one wants to deal with mystery stains. After a decade in lingerie retail, nothing phases me, but sometimes I really wish it did. Disclaimer, these opinions are mine, not the company's. Sign the paper, learn the lesson. Hint, hint to my fellow employees. Story 15. Last year, I worked at a lingerie store where one of our strictest policies was simple: one person per fitting room. The only exception? Moms with small kids. One afternoon, two women came in, clearly a couple, and started shopping. No problem. I opened a fitting room, smiled, and followed protocol. But when the second woman tried to go in with her girlfriend, I gently stopped her and explained, "Sorry, it's store policy, only one person per fitting room at a time." That's when things got tense. She gave me a look that could cut glass and snapped. "Why? What do you think our relationship is?" I froze. Before I could even find words, she added, "What do you think we're going to do in there?" Now my face was burning. I tried to calmly explain again that it was just company policy, nothing personal. But her girlfriend stormed out of the fitting room, hands on her hips, and demanded, "Then what about them?" She pointed at another customer who was in the fitting room with her toddler son. I explained the exception, but they didn't buy it. They were convinced it was unfair, no matter how many times I repeated myself. 5 of the most uncomfortable minutes of my retail career. In the end, I had to call a manager, and even then they left glaring at me like I was the villain in their story. Sometimes working retail means you're not just enforcing policy, you're suddenly cast as the bad guy in someone else's drama. Story 16. About a decade ago, I worked at a popular retail store back when our lingerie section was thriving. I thought I'd seen it all until this family walked in. There was a mom, her teenage daughter, and an older guy who at first I assumed was the daughter's boyfriend. The daughter kept calling him daddy, handing him lingerie, and acting like it was all a big inside joke. Then the guy leaned over and kissed the mom. Yeah, turns out daddy wasn't the boyfriend, he was the mom's husband, and the daughter seemed way too into making it awkward for everyone around them. At one point, she tried to march into the fitting room with an armful of stuff, and I had to step in with the rules. 1 person per fitting room. 2, no lingerie allowed in there. She pouted, handed the pile back, and whined, "Hold my stuff, daddy." And the mom just laughed like it was the funniest thing ever. By the time they left, my soul had left my body. My manager actually gave me an extra long lunch break because I was at my breaking point. Some days, retail doesn't just test your patience, it tests your sanity. Story 17. Back when I worked at a well-known lingerie store, I ran the fitting rooms. Most days were normal chaos, women juggling bras, boyfriends awkwardly lurking by the entrance. But then there was him. A middle-aged man wandered the store, shifty, avoiding eye contact. I approached, thinking maybe he needed help. Instead, he leaned in and asked me, point blank, what size underwear I wore. I froze, tried to redirect. Am I about your girlfriend or wife's size?" "No," he said quickly. "It's not for anybody. Just tell me." My skin crawled. I brushed him off, saying I was on the smaller side, just to end the exchange. He nodded and drifted toward the panty bar, piling up a selection. Minutes later, he asked for a fitting room. Men usually aren't allowed in while women are using them, but he insisted he could wait. His voice was flat, his eyes everywhere but on me. Something about him screamed wrong. I checked with my manager, and after a pause, we decided to let him in with strict limits. "You can't be in there too long," I warned. He went in. Time dragged. When I checked on him, his voice was frantic, shaky, my unease spiked. I flagged down my manager. Moments later, he bolted out of the fitting room, empty-handed, and rushed out the door. I'd known he was up to no good. Still, seeing it made my stomach lurch. And here's the kicker. 2 weeks later, he came back, tried to pull the same thing, but this time the entire staff knew him. He never got near the fitting rooms again. Retail gives you instincts. That day, mine were dead on. Story 18. Working at a lingerie store is basically living in a sitcom where the punchlines are bras, tags, and totally baffling customer behavior. One woman called the store every single day for weeks, asking if we could identify the bra she'd been wearing for 3 years. The tag had rubbed off, so she had no idea what it was. Finally, she showed up in person. When I was alone in the store, she pulled up her top just enough to show me the tag right there in the middle of the sales floor. It was completely washed out, useless. She sighed, then asked me to sketch the bra so the other employees might recognize it. No one ever did. Plot twist, we'd never even sold that bra in the first place. Then there are the holiday men. Every Christmas and Valentine's Day, without fail, a parade of boyfriends and husbands shuffle in, clueless about sizes. Their go-to response? Look me up and down and say, about your size, I guess. Spoiler, this is not the correct way to size your partner. And yes, some men came in to try on bras for themselves. We didn't mind. It happens, and honestly, some just liked the feel of it. But the funniest battles were always with the women who didn't want to believe me. I'd measure them, give them their actual size, and they'd argue with me like I'd personally insulted their character. The truth is, stores like La Senza design bras for specific body types, so not every style will fit you. But try telling that to someone who's sworn she's a 34B for life, when in reality, she's a 38DD. Working lingerie retail teaches you patience, anatomy, and above all else, people will believe a tag before they'll believe you. Story 19. One Christmas season at Lingerie store, a sweet guy in his 30s came in looking for a bra and panty set for his wife. He wanted it to be a surprise, which of course meant he had no idea what her size was. I asked him to give me a ballpark. Extra small, small, medium, large? He paused, looked me up and down, then, without hesitation, gestured with his hands like he was holding invisible basketballs and said, maybe a bit smaller than you. I rang him up after that. And by rang him up, I mean I immediately started cashiering and let someone else handle the rest. Some holiday memories you just never forget. Story 20. I worked in a lingerie store that carried everything from 28A to 48L, so we saw every body type imaginable. Some women were shy about being measured without a bra, but one customer in particular has stayed with me ever since. I set her up in a fitting room with a few bras to try. After several minutes of silence, I knocked gently to check in. That's when I heard it. Quiet sobbing. Through the door, she admitted she hated the way she looked in the mirror. She couldn't even bring herself to step out. She wasn't very large, just slightly above average, but in her own eyes, she was unbearable to look at. I froze, unsure how to help, and went to get my boss. My boss was this absolute vision, classy, confident, plus-sized, and gorgeous. She went into the room, spoke to the woman softly, and somehow got her to laugh through the tears. By the end of the appointment, the woman wasn't just okay. She was glowing. We were running around the store grabbing every bold piece we could find in her size, and she was giggling while trying them on. My boss didn't just sell her bras that day. She gave her back her confidence. Story 21. A couple of years ago, I worked at a chain retail store where policy was crystal clear. If the customer had the item and a receipt, we had to process the return. No exceptions. One afternoon, a woman came in carrying a pile of shirts, jeans, and lingerie. She plopped them on the counter and said they didn't fit. I asked for her receipt. She handed me one that was nearly 6 months old, stained with coffee, and stapled to about 10 other receipts from past returns. That should have been my first red flag. But then I got hit with it. The smell. These clothes didn't just smell worn. They smelled like they belonged in a landfill. Sweat, mildew, something I couldn't even place, the kind of stench that clings to your skin. I called my manager over, praying he'd shut it down. Instead, he sighed, nodded, and told me, process the return. So I did. I scanned everything in, refunded her money, and the second she walked off to keep shopping, we tossed the entire pile straight into the dumpster. She left the store without a care in the world. Meanwhile, I was left with the smell burned into my memory, one of the worst returns of my retail existence. Story 22. The first and only time I ever set foot in lingerie store was supposed to be a big deal. I'm petite, female, but very androgynous. Long hair and softer features say maybe female, but the oversized men's clothes, sports bras, and lack of curves often say maybe male. I've been asked before. I don't mind. It's part of how I like to present. But walking into that store, I felt like an imposter. Awkward, shy, like some creeper guy hanging around lingerie racks when in reality, I was just trying to buy my first normal bra. As I fumbled through racks of lace and frills, I noticed a little girl staring at me. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6, standing next to her mom, brow furrowed, like she was solving the hardest puzzle of her life. Finally, she tugged on her mom's sleeve and whispered, except in the way kids whisper, which is basically yelling, "Mommy, is that a boy or a girl?" Her mom's eyes went wide with horror. She stammered, trying to smooth it over, but I just laughed. I waved my hand and said, No, it's fine. Not the first time I've been asked. Then I tugged my shirt tight, showing the outline of my chest and hips. I'm female. I just like hiding under big, loose clothes. The mom gave me this half-apologetic, half-grateful smile. The little girl just nodded, satisfied like she'd solved the mystery of the day. I ended up leaving without buying anything, too embarrassed to get fitted, and honestly, everything felt too girly for me anyway. Lace and bows just weren't my thing. But that moment stuck with me. Sometimes kids just ask the questions adults are too afraid to, and sometimes it's not offensive at all. Story 23. A few years ago, my girlfriend, her cousin's boyfriend, who's also my best friend, and I were hanging out at the mall. The girls spotted a bra sale at lingerie store and had to go in. Naturally, they dragged us along. My friend and I had never set foot in the store before. As they browsed, we figured the safest, least awkward place to wait was over by the makeup. We stood there chatting quietly, out of the way, for maybe 5 minutes. That's when a store specialist stormed over, dressed in the store uniform, full authority in her step. "Are you buying anything?" she asked. "No," my friend said. "We're just waiting on the girls over there." Her face hardened. "If you're not buying anything, you need to wait outside." "Fine, whatever." We didn't argue. We told the girls we'd be outside and stepped into the mall corridor. 10 minutes later, a mall cop walked up. "Is there a problem here?" We blinked, confused. Before we could even answer, the store specialist marched out, pointed straight at us, and declared, "That's them." Apparently, we were being accused of loitering, stalking. Who knows? We tried to explain we were just waiting for our girlfriends, but she kept insisting otherwise. And then, perfect timing, the girls came out of the store. They saw the cop, panicked, and assumed we had messed up. But once they explained, the truth was obvious. We weren't causing trouble. We weren't even in the store anymore. The cop let us go. The manager chewed out the specialist. Looking back, I kind of get it. We were 16-year-old boys hanging around in a lingerie store. But still, all it would have taken was 1 minute to ask and get the full story. Instead, we got mall copped for waiting by the makeup counter. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.